Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Flynn and I am the owner and maker of Flynn Sisters Boutique. And today we're going to be doing a tutorial on those like coffee and creamer alcohol ink swirl tumblers. I absolutely love this design. I love how these cups look. I'm also a huge fan of coffee, so I just had to make one for myself. I did watch a few other tutorials when I was researching for this video, and I'm going to link them down below to make sure that they get credit. Those were super helpful videos that I think you guys are going to really like. Of course, down in the description box, you're also going to find links to all the products that you see used in this video. So that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, you guys, so we're going to start out by prepping our cup just like I usually do. We're using the Final Sand product to prep our cup. You just need a small amount of this paste and we're going to rub it all over the cup with this maroon scouring pad. I will have a link for the Final Sand product down below along with these maroon scouring pads. This is a super quick and easy one-step process for properly prepping your cups, and it's going to make sure that all of the paint and epoxy adheres properly to our cup. Once we get this all scrubbed up and cleaned up, I'm going to rinse this all off. It only takes about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to fully dry my cup with a paper towel, and then I'm going to spray paint my entire cup with a flat white spray paint. My favorite is the one by Rust-Oleum. Okay, and I've got my cup on the turner here. I am using a 24-ounce taper from Craft Haven, and I've got about 30 milliliters of epoxy mixed here, and I probably won't use all of this. I think I only spread about 20 milliliters of epoxy onto my cup. I think the key to success here is to really be careful about how much epoxy you're putting on for this base layer. You don't want too much and you don't want too little. We want just enough epoxy to where the alcohol ink will have some kind of room to move around. There will be enough epoxy to carry some movement with that ink, but it also won't be so much that we get pooling in areas and things like that. It's also really important to make sure that your cup is completely level on your turner before you start this process. Again, so you don't get pooling of any of the colors as we're doing this ink process. So we've got our cup fully coated in epoxy and it's all evenly spread on there. Again, I think I probably used somewhere around 20 milliliters of epoxy. So I'm just going to let my cup spin for a little bit, and then I'm going to get my torch to pop any bubbles. I want to do the torch now instead of later because I don't want to put any heat on my cup after I put those inks on, because I don't want to get any more movement than what I'm already going to be facilitating with this process. And the alcohol inks that I'm going to be using today are Espresso, Teakwood, and Caramel from Tim Holtz, and the Pinata Blanco White. So what you're going to do to start is, I like to start with the darkest colors first. I'm starting with Espresso, and I'm just going to add dots of this alcohol ink while my cup is spinning. So I have my cup turner adjusted so that my cup will kind of spin towards me, if that makes sense. I don't know. However you're more comfortable doing it. But when you drop your alcohol ink onto your cup, you want to drop it on so that it falls in the direction that the cup is spinning, kind of like how you see here. I'm not sure if I articulated that right, but you guys get the idea. So I'm just adding drops kind of in like a spiral pattern. The reason I like to do it this way is just to make sure that I have even distribution of color. So by moving in a pattern like this, it helps me to see the areas that I've missed and areas that I need to continue dropping color onto. All right, so I've got all the espresso alcohol ink on there. It looks something like this. And now we're going to drop in our teakwood color. For some reason, this teakwood comes out darker than the espresso, but I really like this shade of brown that the teakwood makes in this design. So I'm gonna add a good amount of this and I'm gonna drop it onto the cup in the same fashion that I did with the first color. All right, and so I've got a good amount of the ink around the side of my cup, so I'm also going to tilt my cup turner up and drip some of the ink on the bottom. I almost forgot about the bottom of my cup, so it's really helpful if you have one of these single cup turners that you could easily tilt up the base to drop some color there at the bottom of the cup. I'm going to fill in all these white spots that are left with caramel. And I'm not going to use too much of this caramel color. If you guys kind of wanted more of a light coffee color look to your design, I would maybe use more of the colors in this shade with this kind of light brown. It comes across as yellow until it really mixes in with some of those darker browns. So you really can kind of play with your shades and gradients of color to get like the desired look you're after. All right, and now we're to the point where we're gonna start to kind of layer color. I'm going back in with the teakwood because I want a predominantly darker brown coloring to my design. So I'm just gonna really go through in the same kind of like stairwell pattern around my cup to get even, like evenly distributed color. Right, and once I've got like decent coverage with my brown all over the cup, I'm gonna start dropping in my white. You wanna make sure you shake up the white. I don't know if you really need to, but I just felt like it was necessary. So I shook up this white color and I'm gonna drop it in that same kind of stairwell pattern, only with the white this time. It's gonna be a little more staggered. I'm not gonna be adding as much as I did with the brown. I'm just going to kind of be conservative with it at first and kind of see what it does, and then we'll add up from there. All right, and once I've got a good amount of that white ink on there, I'm going to lift the base of my cup turner so that some of that white ink can kind of move up and down on the cup rather than the ink moving from side to side in a natural rotating pattern. I really want to mix in that white, and I also want to get those inks to mix in a little better with each other rather than them just kind of spinning together. So we're going to you could even take your cup off the turner to do this if you want to flip it totally vertically. I flipped mine, you know, all which ways until I really got to see some more movement. In areas that I didn't like the shade of white, like if it wasn't bright enough, I just added a little more white ink to those spots and kind of played with it a little more. Admittedly, I got a little impatient with the design at this point. However, just trust the process. It's going to come together in the end, even if it looks crazy now. I even added some more of that caramel color while my cup was off the turner, and I placed that over the spots where that espresso ink kind of looked bubbly or weird. Anytime any of your ink spots look a little strange, just add a little more ink over the top of it and layer it until you get the desired look you're after, but also don't just like slam this whole thing with ink. So I think it's really about kind of finding that balance of adding the color, like where you're going to add the color, and a nice distribution of the inks. And after I put my cup back on the turner, I just kind of kept an eye on things for a little bit and looked to see where I needed to add some more color in where until I thought it looked good. Again, if you see a weird spot in your inks, just add a little more ink to that location and see how it does. It also helps if at some point you maybe walk away and kind of take a break for a second, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. put your eyes on something else and then come back to it, because you'll be surprised at like how this really starts to move if you just leave it alone for a minute. Also remember that you do not want to put any kind of heat on this, because we really don't want these inks to blend. We want more of an organic movement in the inks as it reacts with the resin, and if we add any kind of heat to it, we're going to get a lot of blending, which we don't really want to get. Okay, and so after I was done messing with this, I moved it to my epoxy closet, and this is what it looks like. It's approximately 80 degrees in my closet, and that is going to give me a really nice happy temperature to where I'm not going to get too much movement, because my epoxy is going to cure pretty quickly at that temperature, and I don't want my inks to move around too much more than they already have. And we're going to let this dry for at least 6 to 8 hours, and then I will go directly into a second coat of epoxy. Don't be afraid if your layer feels like wavy or bumpy after that alcohol ink dries. That's totally normal. That's why we'll go directly into a second coat so it'll get nice and smooth. I'm letting my second coat dry for 8 to 12 hours, and then I will start with any kind of necessary sanding, which, since we are not using any glitter, there shouldn't be much. I'm just going to sand around my rim to expose a fine line of stainless steel around the top. That's where our final layers of epoxy are going to adhere to create our seal. I'm going to scrape some of that extra epoxy off the top rim, and I'm also going to clean up any alcohol ink that was left over. All right, then we're going to take this inside and get it cleaned up with some dish soap and water, and then I'm going to dry it off with some coffee filters. And now I am ready to apply my decals. I've already gone ahead and cut my decals using Oracal 651 vinyl. I will have a link down below for where I get my vinyl, along with a discount code for you guys also. I'll also link this super cute hand lettered file that says "But First Coffee." This was super challenging to weed because it's such a fine, like, detailed design. However, like, if you try to remove just small amounts of your vinyl at a time and then trim it in chunks with your craft knife, makes it a lot easier to get around all those fine lines. Once I've got everything weeded, I am going to cut off the excess transfer paper from my bottom layer of vinyl. We already offset the file for this, so I'm going to have a green outline around my white hand lettered file here. Please forgive me about not including the offset process in this tutorial. I know we're way overdue for a new offset tutorial and how to create these vinyl outlines for your cups. I promise I'm working on a new tutorial for that, so please be patient. I'm going to layer my vinyl like I normally do, just by kind of eyeballing it and putting it down. Once I've got my vinyl layered, I like to really get everything pressed down nicely with my vinyl scraper, and then I will lift my paper backing off as a precaution to make sure everything transfers smoothly to my cup. And then I'm going to anchor my decal to my cup using the overhang of transfer tape that I have on there. And we're just going to position this about 1 inch from the top rim of our cup and transfer our decal like we normally would. All right, so after we got our decal on there, we were ready for our final coats of epoxy. This particular cup took 2 final coats before it was totally smooth, but that was it. We were done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I absolutely love how this cup turned out. I can't wait to make more, and I'm excited to see what you guys came up with. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and as always, if you liked our video, make sure to give us a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please hit subscribe and hit that bell button so you don't miss a video. I upload every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.